Welcome to the statistics lecture of this class. And the big thing I want to point out here is that we're going to look at some basic quantitative data analysis. So there are two main types of data, categorical and quantitative analysis. With quantitative analysis, this is the one that you should be the most familiar with. And our big thing with quantitative data analysis is making a picture that we understand and then calculating some values, and then we would further going into analysis of those values. All right, for us, I just want to make sure you have a basic understanding of calculating some values and then being able to create a basic quantitative analysis. That basic quantitative analysis is a histogram, dot plot, or stem and leaf plot. So I have an example here, the tuition among all two-year institutions for a 20-year period. And you can see the tuition rates, and those are quantitative data values, aka numbers. And then I've made the three plots. A histogram, all right, looks like this. All right, it's bars and their heights, and you can basically see the shape of the data. Stem and leaf and dot plots do the same thing, but these ones are more that you can do them by hand. So the stem and leaf, notice that it said the 5,000 value, and then it took the next two values, all right, 5, 7. So it rounded this one 466 to 500 and 718 to 700. And then it plots them on the values. So the thing is a stem and leaf plot you could do by hand, but I'm going to show us how to make these in Excel very, very easily. The big thing with quantitative data is calculating the four main measures of center, and really three of these are the big main measures of center. Median, mean, and mode. Those you're probably familiar with, and mid-range is used kind of, not very much. So the median is the exact center of the data set, the middle of the road, right? The median of the road is the middle of the road. It divides the two halves. Doing this by hand, you order the smallest value to the largest, then pick the exact middle value. All right, the mean is represented by y bar, x bar. It is the sum of all the values divided by the total. The mode is the most frequently occurring value, and the mid-range, all right, is the maximum minus the minimum divided by 2. All right, so an approximate middle of the data. Spreads, you're probably less familiar with. All right, so there are three main types of spreads, but we're going to talk about two here. All right, the range, which is the easiest one to calculate, the maximum minus the minimum. All right, and the standard deviation, which is an approximate distance from the mean that breaks the data into percentages. And that's what really, we want to look at how to calculate these values. That's going to be the big thing for what we're going to investigate. If you take a statistics class, we're going to talk about the interpretation of these, which is much more common, but we need to know how to calculate them. And I want to make very aware that my math lab pretends that you don't have a computer. So the biggest question is going to be, don't waste your time and use a computer. Make sure you understand. And so I have directions here in Excel and your calculator, but I was like, I always do these in Excel or even a statistical analysis program. So I want to consider the following data set. The number of credit hours of 13 students at Gillette College. All right, so I have a list of those values. I'm going to create a histogram. I want to calculate the mean, median, mid-range, mode, standard deviation, and the range. So we're going to pull up Excel here. So I've entered the data values in, and you enter them as a list. In order to create our histogram, highlight the data values, go into Insert, and then right here in Insert Statistical Chart, it says histogram. And it plots the value. Now you can mess around with the bins, like so the bin width. All right, it says 10 to 15. So all these values between 10 and 15, it's putting in this first bin. All the values between 15 and 20, it's putting in the second bin. But not really going to be our point. I just want you to be able to make the most common basic quantitative display, and that's how we do it. All right, calculating the values. So some of these are going to be very, very easy. For the mean, equals average, open parentheses, highlight your values, and hit enter. And actually, let's title this. All right, mean, median, mode, mid-range, standard deviation, and range. Okay, so for the median, same thing, equals median, open parenthesis, and that open parenthesis is a big one. Select the value and hit enter, and it found the median. Mode equals mode, open parenthesis, hit enter. Now, as a note, 15, 15, 15, 15, mode is one I can visually identify. All right, so I know that was the correct mode. Be aware, if mode says NA, it means all values are unique, all right, and there is no mode, or they're all modes, however you want to say it. Mid-range, all right, this is one that actually is not in Excel. So equals open parenthesis, but I can use the max command. So I'm going to do max, then close parenthesis, minus the min, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then close it again, divided by 2. So the mid-range is basically the range divided by 2. Along those lines, while we're there, max, and so I'm going to guess the range is 10 because the mid-range was 5. Max, close parenthesis, minus min, close parenthesis. Oh, and the range is 10. And these always have that relationship. They're not, notice the calculation of the two of them is almost identical. The mid-range, the only difference is it's that whole thing divided by 2. So if you calculate the range, divide it by 2, and that's your mid-range. And then lastly, standard deviation equals STDEV. All right, that's the standard deviation calculation. And hit enter. And, all right, that's the basic concept of statistics as far as we are going to investigate them. Excel does a very, very good job at identifying some simple calculations. If you take statistics, and I hope you do, all right, we will investigate this information in much more depth. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful day.